His Last Companion, written by Sophia Conway, narrated by Brian Applegate. Earth was dying, first slowly, and then all at once. Stripped of its vegetation, the earth became a harsh and barren wasteland. The few natural resources that remained were not enough to support the billions of people that now inhabited the earth's surface. The race for survival exposed a selfishness buried deep within the hearts of humankind, and society collapsed at the outbreak of a global war. Those who survived the conflict soon perished between sun and sand, and empty cities began to crumble into the dust. Earth became a golden marble suspended in the silent beauty of space. In a dying world, on a dusty bench, sat an elderly man feeding birds. With his hood hanging low over his face to protect it from the burning sun, he tore up his bread and threw it to the flock of birds at his feet, who dived after each piece with a ravished look in their eyes. Death came to him, not with thunder and terror, but step by step he approached out of the flickering mirages along the far horizon, coming to sit down next to the elderly man. His great bony frame hunched over his knees, and long, heavy robes brushed the dust. The old man had not had company for a while, and for a moment did not know how to greet this new and unexpected companion. "Good day," he finally said, after several long moments of silence had passed, not looking up from the task at hand. "You're giving the last of your food to those scavengers," observed Death. The man cleared his throat. It was a dry and painful sound. "It would only fill my stomach for a little while, and prolong my death by an hour." The man turned to look at Death sideways and asked, "But you've come for me now, haven't you?" For a man will always recognize his end when it stares him in the face. Death did not reply, but looked thoughtful towards the horizon from where he had come from. The two sat in an occupied silence. The man wiped the sweat from his brow with his sleeve and threw the last dry chunk of his bread to the birds. Once they had finished fighting over it, they fluttered about, searching for more. One bird flew up to land on Death's shoulder, but as it swooped close, Death placed his thin palm gently against its soft chest. Upon contact, the bird dropped to the ground, landing with a gentle thud on its back, in the dust with its feet stretched towards the sky. Both figures watched it for signs of life, but there were none. The man let slip a startled exhale at this sudden demise. Death turned his head towards the man, and at once the remaining birds took flight, disappearing in a flurry of movement. As several large gray feathers floated to the ground, it was suddenly very quiet. There was not a whisper of wind or a rustle of sand across the earth's surface. The old man's brow furrowed deep. "You dread the silence?" The old man sighed. "I have had too much of it. There was once a time when this world was filled with noise. You had to search hard for silence, and when you found it, your own thoughts became loud." "And what did they say?" "What had been, and what had to be done." "What is still to be done?" "Too much for only one man to do," replied the man as he brushed the leftover breadcrumbs off his lap. "One only strives for things in hope. Hope for something better or something more. But times have changed." His voice was heavy with sadness. "Until the last man has drawn his last breath, there is always hope." "Then hope dies with me," replied the man quietly. "And I had thought that it had died a long time ago." He then turned to Death and asked with a feeling of uncertainty, "Have you come for me?" "Whom else could I have come for? You are the last soul, Isaac." Isaac looked startled. It had been a very long time since his name had been spoken aloud, and it sounded strange to him. He tried to shrug off his unease. "For some company? It's a lonely world now."
"Death seeks no companion for himself."
"There's a companion for everyone in life, for every creature, even if only for a little while."
"For the living, breathing creatures of this world, maybe. Those who do not have a companion have an equal instead. The sun and the moon do not share the same sky, and no light is present where the darkness hides. Life is my equal, for where I am, she is not."
Isaac thought about what Death had said and felt a twinge of pity for him. It was a loneliness he knew all too well. Licking his dry lips, a question occurred to him. He asked, "Have you been here long? Among us, I mean?" Death sighed deeply.
"Too long. It would have been an easier task given to me if your kind hadn't insisted on slaughtering each other."
Isaac agreed, his own heart grieved by it. "Too many lost and sacrificed in war."
"One people, one planet. You stand alone against the unknown universe, and yet you cannot stand together for all of your petty rivalries and childhood bitterness."
Isaac dropped his gaze in shame.
"But yet,"
Death spoke suddenly in a softer tone,
"somehow good has emerged from your kind anyway. Not all was lost in war. Unity arose from the ashes on the broken backs of men, and you rebuilt your societies, time and time again. Perseverance in trials, hope despite suffering, forgiveness in the face of betrayal, and love despite all things. Others will learn much good from the mankind that destroyed themselves in the end."
"We could never have known that it would end this way," Isaac spoke up defensively.
"Did you really think so highly of yourselves? Life never started with you, and it will continue on without you. Nothing ever depended on mankind. In the depths of the Antarctic frost, there was still life, though you were not there to watch over it."
"You just said that much good came of us," pointed out Isaac sullenly.
"It did, but often it was hard to hear the good that cried quietly out from among you for all of the war drums that were playing on your minds."
"It doesn't matter any more anyway. It's all over now." Isaac sighed remorsefully, pulling a battered flask from one of many pockets and taking a bitter swig to soothe his itching throat.
"Does the end surprise you?"
He was caught off guard by Death's question, and his expression faltered. "It took all of us by surprise. Nobody ever thought that it would end. Not like this, anyway."
"And yet you glorified it. It was an inspiration to many. Here it is, as terrifying and destructive as you wanted it to be. And where is your audience now?"
"But it's so final, so harsh, and it came so suddenly. We didn't stand a chance." Death heard the helplessness in Isaac's voice and felt pity for him. He had been around for a very long time, and still had never come to understand humanity. Isaac returned the flask to his pocket and began to massage his left knee stiffly. Death glanced over at it, but he shrugged it off. "An old war wound. The heat in the day and the desert cold at night irritate what has healed badly. I won't complain, though. I was fortunate enough to survive the bloody war with so little damage. Many didn't make it out alive." Death nodded knowingly. For him, those had been busy times. They sat in silence for a moment as both their minds wandered back to bruised battlefields and the echo of guns in the night. "I know a poem a soldier once told me. It has always stuck with me, though I hated it." Isaac's voice trailed off.
"Why did you hate it?"
"It speaks of war and loss. We had enough of that in our everyday lives. I saw no reason to write songs and poems about it. We could never have forgotten what we were forced to do in the line of duty. Every night in my dreams, I return to those battlefields." Isaac relapsed into a deep and thoughtful silence. "Tell me," urged Death. "My dreams?"
"The poem."
"Oh, yes. All right." Isaac took a moment as he tried to remember how it began, and then started to speak. "Cold was the dawn, and thick the mist, as drums roused soldiers from their sleep. A cry to arms, to motivate each war-torn soul. The time has come. For pride and peace we fight today." For the battlefield they stood, poised in the mist, the slaughter nearing. Fearful hearts loud in the silence, loved ones sent a hushed farewell. At the command the line surged forward, a cry for blood upon each broken lip. For victory, for love and honor, let us die to make men free. His voice broke with emotion as he recited the last line. "Cheerful," remarked Death. "Well, it wasn't a parade, that's for sure," Isaac muttered sarcastically. His hand returned to his wounded knee. "I remember this poem from long ago because it speaks of things I knew so well. We lived on a battlefield that brought about the end of us all. In the beginning it was called the Great War, as if there was anything great or glorious about it. Towards the end they called it the Last War. The war had gone on for so long that few truly believed we would ever see the end of it. We forgot what life was like before the conflicts. Harmony, peace, gone it all is, for a handful of gold." "Is that really for what it was all for?" "For much less than that." Isaac hid his head in his hands in shame. We thought we were fighting for the greater good, whatever that is. We never stopped to question. The fear was infectious. And pride, damn pride for our bloody country, as if they ever truly gave us a loving thought. In the end, we didn't even know what we were fighting for. Others had the command, and we did as we were told. We considered it our duty, for our wives, children, fellow man. Oh, I wish I could go back. I would have done so many things differently."
By the time most people would wish that, it would already be too late. Too many people have far too many regrets.
Isaac sighed deeply and unhappily. What does it matter? What is done is done. He looked around at the emptiness that surrounded them and tried to picture what it had looked like before the war. Music, movement, color.
"I once heard the lines of a poem."
Death paused. "A more cheerful one than mine, I hope."
"I heard it first a long time ago from the lips of a mother reading to her sons. Listen. I think I shall live forever, said the raven to the world. I feel infinite, matchless. There's a blue sky in my soul. I am a restless ocean, a spring bubbling up from earthly caverns. I shall not close my eyes forever, but build my nest among the stars, out of reach for all the world to see. Eternal sleep will not catch me. Let no shadow cross my path. There is no end to me. I am truly free. Death heard the raven's boasts, and for his pride plucked him from the sky. For so many had spoken so before, and many after him would do so again.
Death's voice was deep and soulful as he spoke. Isaac was mesmerized, and it was only after several moments had passed did he clear his throat to speak.
Would you really do that?
Take someone's life for their pride?
No, never. It is not my place to choose a life. I am simply drawn to those whose time it is to depart, and once I have accompanied them to the world beyond, I return for the next soul.
Oh, said Isaac, and there was nothing more to be said. He thought about the people he had lost, all of whom would have been accompanied by death at some point. He tried to imagine what they might have said to death, if it was fear or certainty they had felt, and if anyone had thought of him as they prepared to leave this earth. His mother, maybe? Certainly not his father. You say that you've always been among us, but I've never seen you before. He spoke up. Death gestured to the horizon.
Did I leave any mark in the sand when I approached you earlier?
Isaac studied the ground in the direction from where Death had approached him. There were no footprints, not even ripples left behind by Death's heavy robes.
No,
he admitted, turning to look back at his own footprints in the sand. They were deep and messy, made by him as he had left his shelter in the last remaining city in the distance and come to the bench, his usual lookout post between the crumbling city and the endless desert.
Only those whose time has come have ever laid eyes on me. If I had not come for you, then you would have never seen any evidence that I had been here at all.
But you're there. When they die, you see it happen?
Yes.
And you stand by and wait for it?
I arrive just as life lets go.
So, you were there when my last companion died?
I was, as I always am, by their side in their final moments.
Did she suffer?
Death leaned back his head thoughtfully as he tried to recall the companions Isaac has had throughout his life. Madeline. Hearing her name spoken again sent a wave of emotion through Isaac as he felt his heart hurt once more.
Her name was Madeline. She fell not too long ago.
Isaac trembled as he struggled to speak of what had happened.
Death snapped his fingers sharply as it came back to him, causing Isaac to jump.
Madeline! No, it was quick. I appeared just as she slipped over the edge. I fell with her and took her hand before she hit the ground.
I didn't see you. I was there when it happened, but I didn't see you.
Isaac's bottom lip quivered and his eyes pricked painfully, though he was too dehydrated to shed any tears. Visions flooded back to his mind of him kneeling in the dust and gathering her broken body, uttering a cry of deepest pain that had echoed through the dead city ruins around him. It was a sound he had never uttered before, welling up from a place of old anger and deep hurt. It was not your time to see me, replied Death evenly. Did you love her? He added, more gently this time.
Isaac sniffed sorrowfully and swallowed hard before replying. She was all I had left in this lonely world. We were all so busy fighting that one day we opened our eyes and realized that there was no one left to fight, nothing to go back to, and no one in charge. Those who survived the war banded together. There were only hundreds of us in the beginning, only hundreds left out of billions. We thought that we might rebuild society, but time passed, and we began to lose hope. Fights broke out, and the group began to crumble. The situation brought out the worst in all of us.
How did you both survive?
I'm not proud of what I did to get this far. When it comes down to it, when a decision has to be made for your own survival, you or me, that's when you really get to know yourself. I did some terrible things, but it didn't change anything in the end anyway. Death came for me all the same.
Isaac cracked a sad smile, and his gaze returned to the dead bird between their feet.
To think that after all this, I'd be outlived by a couple of bloody pigeons.
Death made a hoarse sound, which Isaac took for a laugh, in agreement.
Smaller groups of people broke off and went their own way. We never saw or heard of them again. Within a year we went from hundreds to tens, and even those few we lost to sickness, insanity, or dehydration. Suddenly, it was only the two of us. We had little in common, but we had no one else in this world for company. I wish I had arrived earlier. Maybe I could have prevented her fall. I blame myself. I should have known better than to let her go to that rooftop alone. She wasn't in a good place. But she was an amazing woman, that's for sure. I miss her very much.
She was, agreed Death.
How do you know that? Do you ever see the lives of the people you take?
No.
So, for all the great knowledge you must have, you don't really know who you take.
Isaac raised his eyebrows in astonishment. I can look into the hearts of men, but I only see the condition it is in at that moment. I don't see their past. I can't see where they will end up. I only see and understand who they are at that moment.
Isaac found it hard to understand and gestured wildly as he spoke. So you really know nothing about me?
Only what condition your heart is in now, and what you have already told me. Your knee, your most recent companion.
And you knew nothing of her either?
Little.
But you agreed that she was an amazing woman, yet you knew nothing about her.
She went without flinching, and that told me enough. You get to know a person very well when they are faced with their own mortality. Those who cower, whose faces show doubt and regret, and those who go fearlessly, who have nothing more to give.
Could you not have taken me when you took her? Did I have to spend all this time alone?
Isaac turned to look at Death, but Death did not flinch under his gaze. There are those, much greater than I, that speak the final word on all things. I go where I am sent, and take who has already been chosen.
Death spoke slowly, carefully choosing each word. You're the executioner!
I am a companion to them, the last they shall have. I take each soul across the great divide.
Isaac looked in disbelief, and so Death continued.
I take them by the hand, and they are no more in your life.
Isaac's gaze dropped to the dead bird lying in the dust, and he remembered how it had died at Death's touch. Despite the heat, he felt an icy shiver run up his spine, and slid an inch further up the bench away from Death. If Death noticed, he made no indication of it. The two looked at each other from opposite ends of the bench. But I'm not ready to go. I'm not ready to die. Isaac sounded panicked as he struggled to come up with reasons to support his argument. There was very little, But to finally take a step beyond this life, it was everything he had ever known. This life was hard, and it was lonely, but there was certainty in that, and certainty brought comfort. He wasn't ready for it to end, wasn't ready for change, for something new and unpredictable. He imagined death to be painful, to be cold and breathless, gasping for sunlight. If life was this bright, then surely death was darkness, weightlessness, loneliness, blindness, silence like nothing ever before it. I'm not ready to die. My God, this panic! Isaac realized that he wouldn't have been the first person to try and negotiate for their life. Death didn't seem like anyone who would stop and reconsider. In a moment of wild panic and overwhelming fear, Isaac decided to make a run for it. He leapt off the bench, his bones cracking with the unexpected movement, veering off to the left, kicking back sand as he ran. He ran with all he had, though his progress was slow. With every step, his foot sank into the scaling sand, and his knee cried out in pain. With the rush of emotion and the hot sun beating down on him, he soon became dizzy, and the desert began to swim around him. Originally, he had tried to run towards the city, but at some point he must have stumbled in the wrong direction, for now only an empty, golden horizon greeted him. Gasping for breath and with darting pains in his chest, he crumbled to his knees. He would have cried tears of frustration if he had not already been too dehydrated to do so. Suddenly a tall shape moved between him and the sun. Its shadow enveloped him and brought a brief moment of relief, then a feeling of dread.
Don't try to run away from me, man. I am death. I have no mortal body. I can walk the boundaries between earth and stars. Do not think that your earthly laws have a hold on me.
Death snapped furiously, finishing with an angry mutter.
You belittle me with your expectations that I am frail and slow and easily outwitted. I find it insulting.
I can't. Isaac stammered. I thought that everything would be okay in the end, that things would come back to the way they used to be.
Isaac,
called Death, but Isaac barely heard him through his own misery. I've waited for so long for the people I love to come back again, but nothing, there's nothing left. Isaac threw his hands open wildly to the emptiness around them. And now I must die? This cannot be the end. I beg you.
Who said that this is the end?
What could possibly lie beyond death? What life could live in death? Isaac began to hyperventilate, and he crumbled back onto himself, gasping for breath.
What do you have to lose? What hope does this empty world still hold for you?
Isaac scrambled for an answer, for a reason, for a hope, but he himself had once said that there was none. Well, then take me, damn it! Damn it all, to every one of them who's left me behind! This whole world! Take me now and let's have it over with! He cried fiercely as he stretched a shaking hand towards Death. However, Death did not take it, and soon Isaac let his outstretched arm drop to the ground in exhaustion. When Death spoke again, it was with carefully chosen words.
Through life, you have many ever-changing companions. These people accompany you for a while along your path, and you along theirs. But they are not permanent. No one can walk the whole way with you, as everyone's path has its own end. I am simply one of these companions, made to accompany you over a bridge, if you will, from one world into another, so that you may continue your path there.
Why are you telling me this?
Why not just take hold of me and have it over with?" retorted Isaac angrily.
Death stooped down inches before his face, and Isaac felt himself shrink back in the sudden closeness. There was something frighteningly intimate about Death's proximity all at once.
"You said that you want to have it over with, but I need you to understand that your life does not end with me. I am simply a doorway, a bridge, the toss of a die into a new game. Much still lies ahead of you."
Isaac's throat was painfully dry, and he felt a lump slide into his throat.
I can't. I'm so tired. I'm too old for this. I just want it all to end, to fall asleep and never be woken. This life isn't for me. It's just a constant struggle. It's exhausting."
Death sighed, nearly tiresomely.
"Only you humans make it exhausting for yourselves. Do you see the rest of nature groan and complain about life? No. Life shouldn't be something you wade through in the half-light, but a celebration. It was meant as a wild and soul-stretching journey, but you humans have taken it and packed it neatly into little gray boxes to be labeled and categorized. You believe this life has to be smooth, organized, and routinely done to be good and complete. But look around you. What in this world tells you that it has to be so? Even nature, the restless waves, irregular trees, and stars all out of line show that chaos is beautiful. Life, as your kind used to say, is what you make it, how you perceive it, what you do with it. It is your life, to be lived once, and at the end of the day, only you can say, this is not how it will be spent."
Death seemed to grow larger in his annoyance, and as he spoke, his bony hands curled into fists. When he had finished, Death reached down towards the kneeling figure and took him firmly by the flimsy fabric of his collar. Isaac cried out weakly, expecting the pain he believed came with death, but instead he was hit with the cold force of a strong wind that tore his breath away and lifted him up briefly. In a heartbeat it was over, and he felt the burning heat of the sun on his skin once again. He crumbled to his knees, gulping in the hot desert air, and silently begged for the world to stop spinning around him.
"Only fools try to run. If you do it again, I shall leave you to yourself on this dying planet, and we'll see how soon you'll be calling my name again, for the want of an escape."
Death gave him a stern, warning look. As Isaac became more aware of their surroundings, he realized that they were back at the bench. He looked back in confusion from where they had just come from, and noticed that only his footprints could be seen going, but not returning. Death returned to his side of the bench and waited for Isaac to join him. When he finally did, Isaac slumped back heavily and buried his head in his hands, trying to calm his pounding heart.
"I would not have done it if you had not driven me to it," stated Death unapologetically. "Humans were not made for such a method of travel. The sickness will pass in a minute."
It took Isaac a lot longer to recover, but his body was not as young as it once had been. When he did feel well enough to speak again, it was because he had, with shaking hands, emptied the bitter contents of his flask. Having decided to change the topic and attempt to forget what had just happened, he silently promised never to try to outrun death again. Not that he would have too many opportunities to try so again.
"You said that you take people by the hand when they die. Where do you take them?"
He unsuccessfully tried to disguise the shakiness that still lingered in his voice. Death seemed pleased by the question.
"We walk together, hand in hand, often in silence, but sometimes they have the urge to speak or to confess. Sometimes they weep.
In fear?
For those they have left behind. Too many weep in regret of time wasted, and few have left this life having made a real difference. Some lived and breathed, and died too soon.
Death opened his long bony fingers as if to cradle something small and delicate. Isaac felt a lump slide into his throat as he realized what Death was referring to.
Do they fear you?
Some do. The wise don't, because at that moment, when they see me, they finally understand.
Understand what?
What a fragile thing this life is.
Death threw up his hands as if in frustration.
I am not fear. I am death. For all of your great inventions and discoveries, your greatest scientists and wisest philosophers never once knew more of me. I am the great unknown. People do not fear me. They know I am a passing thing. They fear where I will bring them, the mysteries I hold. I am the truth that they are denying.
What truth is that?
That all things must come to an end.
And where do you take them to? Is there really a heaven amongst all the galaxies above? Death only met Isaac's gaze with silence,
and it dawned on Isaac that he himself would soon find out.
Did the bad people ever have to pay for their crimes?
Isaac was nearly too afraid to ask, as he had done many bad things in his lifetime.
The answer would tell him of his own fate to come,
but the answer was vague. What is done in the shadows rarely stays there.
Death looked sideways at him.
Are you a religious man?
No, I had no time for such things. Isaac grew red in the face, though it was nearly impossible to tell under his rugged and deeply tanned skin. He was unsure how Death would react, knowing that he was speaking to someone who had lived a lot longer than him and knew much more about such things.
Faith gives hope to the soul, and peace to a restless heart. There is nothing wrong with faith as long as you are utterly convinced by what you say you believe in.
Why is that?
Because a man with divided loyalties is like a boat tossed by the waves. Life is unpredictable and sometimes harsh, and each man must find his own anchor in life to ground him in the storm.
Oh. Isaac wondered what he himself trusted in, but he no longer remembered.
What is your anchor? What has given you hope all this time? Every man holds fast to something.
I don't know. I simply hoped that tomorrow would bring a better day. I thought that maybe everything will be different. Isaac's eyes looked far into the distance, as he had every day for a long time, waiting for something better to come along. And one day Death had approached him from there.
Then yours is not an anchor but a lighthouse, guiding you on and giving you a reason to continue your journey.
Well, then it hasn't led me anywhere better, though I've followed its light for miles.
Isaac responded bitterly.
The day's not over yet, said Death.
And the two turned to watch the sun inch its way towards the horizon. The shadows of the sand dunes began to stretch themselves out in the fading light, and the sky was lit up in a tapestry of golden hues and royal purples. Isaac's spirit was lifted at the beautiful sight, and the two admired it in silence.
I am a door to pass through, not a final destination,
said Death after much time had passed.
A moment, and not a lifetime. The road leads on beyond me. It is a path we all must take, but it stretches far further than you would ever believe."
Isaac's fear began to subside slowly, and he felt comforted to know that so many had gone before him, and that he would not be alone at the beginning of his journey, though death seemed like an unusual travel companion to him. "This earth," he gestured to his surroundings, and his voice trailed away as he struggled to find the right words. As much as he hated the bleakness of this world, it was all there was, all he knew.
"It is dying, no thanks to what your kind has done to it."
"What will become of it?"
"It may be over here, but life will dawn in another place."
Isaac gazed at the emptiness surrounding them as he tried to imagine there being any less than there already was. "It used to be such a crowded and colorful place." He tried to remember what it had been like many centuries ago, but everything came back hazy and disconnected to him, as if the memories were being forgotten, dislodged, rewritten. Isaac met Death's gaze, but Death's expression was never easy to read.
"This world, this life, and everything in it was yours for a while, and is now no more. Such is life."
Death spoke so dispassionately that Isaac jumped inside. "It's terrifying."
"Promising," corrected Death.
"One life?"
"One chance."
"To be used for what?"
"To leave it in a better state than what you found it in."
"It's so fleeting," complained Isaac. "So little time."
"Not to be wasted. One life, one chance, one shot of an arrow, if you will," said Death firmly.
"And if I miss?"
Isaac was nearly too terrified to ask.
Death met his searching eyes with an earnest gaze, and the question was left unanswered. Isaac felt his body tremble from sudden anticipation at the realization that all of those silent hours would be over soon. He would no longer live alone in this makeshift shelter between haunting city ruins. No longer sweat through the day and shiver at night. No longer have to scavenge for food and water. No longer feel the twinge of his war wound. Not have to fend off the wild animals that stalked the city ruins at night, and the constant irritation of sunburn. Dry tears and lonely hours were all coming to an end. He was the last to walk this path. A question occurred to him. Why did I have to see it end like this? Could I not have died peacefully in my sleep a long time ago, thinking that all was right with the world? I would have died happy.
This was to be your path from the very beginning.
Did you always spend as much time with those you took?
No, but since you are the last person, I have time. Once I have accompanied you across, my work here on earth is done.
I'm going to die now, aren't I? That's why you're here, after all. Isaac nearly didn't recognize the calmness in his own voice. So tell me, Death, what does my end look like? How will I die? Am I about to have a heart attack? Or will I be bitten by some poisonous creature? Have you come to watch me die of starvation and dehydration? How does it end for me now? Death didn't answer, but rose to his feet and stared across the vast sands just as the sky began to cloud and darken at an alarming rate above them. A whirlwind of sand rose up out of the horizons before them. Isaac's tattered clothes began to flap in the wind, while Death's heavy robes remained untouched. In minutes, the whirlwind became a giant sandstorm that was moving rapidly towards them like a golden wall of fury that reached far into the sky. Terrified, Isaac shouted at Death over the roaring winds, "Is this how it ends?" Death remained unmoved, but somewhere in Isaac's mind he heard the reply loud and clear in Death's deep voice. For this world, at least, your journey is only beginning. "Where are you taking me?" Isaac cried in a rush of panic. "There are no words in your earthly tongue for this place, as no person has seen it and returned to tell of it." The sandstorm suddenly swallowed them whole. Isaac staggered blindly as waves of sand and dust slammed into him. He could feel the hot particles fill his mouth and nostrils itching at his ears and being blown into the gaps of his clothing, down his collar and into his sleeve. It was coarse, rubbing painfully against his skin like sandpaper. Between the cracks in his eyelids he could see Death's ominous black shape before him, unfazed by the storm, as if he was unaware that it was there. The two were surrounded by walls of flowing sand, the color of angry sunlight. Beaten down by the force of the wind, the man crouched terrified in the dust, struggling to pull down his hood over his head. "Don't go! Stay with me, please!" he shouted over the wind. Death reached out a bony hand. "For a little while," said the voice in Isaac's head. Isaac grasped the bony hand of Death, and as his earthly weight slumped back into the sand, he stood weightless before Death, untouched by the storm as the roar of the wind grew distant. Behind Death was suddenly a huge ornate door, and Isaac's eyes followed its pointed shape high into the heavens. Death twisted the small knob before him, and as the door slid open silently, the purest light beamed out, casting shadows across the sand. A sweet melody could be heard drifting from somewhere distant, and the clearest air filled Isaac's tired lungs. "Walk with me," said Death. And so, the last man on earth followed Death through the doorway between earth and stars, into the world beyond. On behalf of Sophia Conway, this is Brian Applegate. It's been a pleasure narrating for you. The production copyright is 2023, Sophia Conway. This has been His Last Companion.